Assalamu alaikum. Myself, I'm Mehdi Hassan, third year student of School of Prosthetics and Orthotics. Today I am gonna make a video about gait cycle. Today I explain to you what is the meaning of each gait of cycle, then their objective of each phase of gait, then where is the position of GRF during gait. Then I will talk about moment of each phase of gait. What moment occurs? At last I will talk about muscle activity of each gait. Let's talk about one by one. What is the meaning of initial contact? It means heel contacts the ground first. Then what is the meaning of loading response? Occupies 10 to 15% of gait cycle. Shock absorption is a primary option. Ends with contralateral toe off. What is mid stance? Occupies 15 to 20%. Body is directly overweight. And what is the meaning of terminal stance? Occupies 20 to 25%. Contralateral side of pelvis rotated forward. What is the meaning of pre-swing? Occupies 5 to 10%. Knee of weight bearing limb flexion. Prepare for swing phase. What is the meaning of initial swing phase? Occupies 5 to 10%. Begins at toe off and continues until maximum knee flexion. What is the meaning of mid swing? Occupies 20 to 30%. Knee extension occurs by reducing flexion of initial swing from 70 degree to 30 degree. What is the terminal swing? Occupies 5 to 10 degree. Pelvic rotates forward, hip flexion reaches 30 degrees. Knee extend to near 0 degree. Now I am going to talk about my second content, which is objective of gait cycle. The first one is objective of initial contact. Start with heel rocker, impact deceleration. Second one is objective of loading response. Is shock absorption and weight bearing stability and preservation of progression. Third one is objective of mid stance. Its objective is progression of over the stationary foot, limb and trunk stability. The fourth one is the objective of terminal stance. Shock absorption, weight bearing stability, preservation of progression. Then objective of pre-swing, position the limb for swing and accelerate progression. And objective of initial swing, foot clearance of the floor and advancement of the limb from trailing position. Objective of mid swing, limb advancement, foot clearance of floor. And objective of terminal swing, complete limb advancement. And the last one is prepare for the limb stance. Now my third content is about ground reaction force. So where it goes during gait cycle and with sagittal plane. Ground reaction force during initial contact in sagittal plane goes to anterior to hip flexion moment and posterior to knee flexion moment and posterior to ankle flexion moment. Then ground reaction force, loading response and sagittal plane, anterior to hip flexion moment, posterior to knee flexion moment and posterior to anterior ankle plantar flexion moment. Ground reaction force during mid stance in sagittal plane passes through hip joint, no moment, that time no moment happen. Posterior to knee flexion moment, that time flexion moment happen. And anterior to ankle dorsiflexion moment. Ground reaction force during terminal stance in sagittal plane posterior to hip extension moment, anterior to the knee extension moment, and anterior to ankle dorsiflexion moment. Reaction force during pre-swing in sagittal plane. By 2 of the reaction has lost most of its significance, as the majority of weight is borne by the other foot, and hip is in 10 degree of extension and occur continuous to flex due to the plantar flexion of the foot. Knee is flexed about 40 degree and continuously to flex and plantar flexion of foot. Ankle has reached 20 degree of plantar flexion. And then ground reaction force initial swing during sagittal plane. uh, Hip is in 10 degree of extension, knee will be 40 degree of flexion and continuously to flex, and ankle will be is 20 degree plantar flexion of directly to off. Ground reaction force in mid swing in sagittal plane. Hip is flexed about 20 degree and continuously to flex, knee reached about 66 of flexion, then begins to extend under pendulum action. Ankle has reached neutral position. Then ground reaction force in terminal swing and frontal sagittal plane. Hip reached 25 of flexion. Hip is extension and restrained by the hamstring, and ankle is still held in the neutral position. I'm going to talk about ground reaction force, but it frontal plane. Ground reaction force in initial contact during initial contact and in frontal plane. Lateral to subtalar axis, it goes to laterally to subtalar axis, medially to knee joint, and medially to hip joint. Ground reaction force during loading response in frontal plane. Lateral to subtalar axis, it goes to laterally to subtalar axis, and medially to the knee joint, and medial to the hip joint. Ground reaction force misstance during misstance in frontal plane, and lateral to axis of subtalar joint, medial to knee joint, and medial to hip joint. Ground reaction force during terminal stance in frontal plane. um, Medial to axis of subtalar joint, medial to the knee joint, and medial to the also hip joint. Reaction force during pre-swing in frontal plane. The vector passes near to the axis of the subtalar and knee and hip. Now I am going to talk about the moment and during each phase of gait, and the knee, hip, and ankle, how they move that time. What moment occurs during initial contact? Hip is flexed externally rotated. Hip is flexed and externally rotated. Knee is fully extended. Foot is supinated. What moment occurs during loading response? Hip is flexed and slightly externally rotated. Knees is slightly flexed. Ankle is plantar flexing to neutral. What moment occurs during mid stance? Hip is neutral and knee is fully extended, and ankle will be relatively neutral position. What occurs during terminal stance? Hip is extended and internally rotated. Knee is fully extended position. Ankle will be dorsiflexed position. And what moment occurs during pre-swing? The pre-swing time, hip is fully extended and internally rotated, and knee will be fully extended position, and ankle will be plantar flex position. And what movement occurs during initial swing? Hip is slightly extended and internally rotated, knee is slightly flexed position, and ankle will be fully plantar flexion. Moment occurs during mid swing phase. Hip is neutral position, and knee is flexed 60 to 90 degree angle. Ankle is plantar flexed to neutral position. Occurs during terminal swing. Hip is flexed and externally rotated. Knee is fully extended and ankle is fully dorsiflexed position. Now I'm going to talk about muscle and which muscle effectively work during gait cycle, and we, uh, which muscle work during initial contact effectively. uh, Hip, hamstring, gluteus maximus and adductor muscle, knee, quadricep muscle, and ankle, tibialis anterior. Which muscle work during lowering response? Hip extensor, hip adductors muscle, knee, quadricep group of muscle, ankle, tibialis anterior. Muscle that work during mid-stance. Gastrosoleus complex fires to initiate knee flexion. Muscle that work during terminal stance. Strong activation of gastrosoleus complex. uh, which muscle work during pre-swing? The hip, iliopsoas and adductor magnus and adductor longus muscle, and knee, quadricep group of muscle, and ankle gastrosoleus complex. uh, which muscle work during initial swing? Hip flexion and rectus femoris, uh, and iliacus and adductor longus gracilis and sartorius muscle work that time. Muscle that work during mid swing. Tibialis anterior fires to maintain foot position. Knee extension and hip flexion continue to by inertia. Muscle that work during terminal swing. Deceleration, knee extension and hip flexion by the hamstring and gluteus maximus, and tibialis anterior maintain ankle position. That's all my video. Thank you everyone. Assalamu alaikum.